Om. Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu. Sahano Bhunaktu. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvina Vaditamastu. Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti. 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 Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace. Peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. Well, speaking of the dearly beloved, thank you all for coming this evening. This is our Tuesday evening class where we read and discuss the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, that unique document in the history of the world's spiritual literature that gives the very words that a teacher said and the very specific circumstances in which he said them. It also gives the stories of many of the people very close to Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, Swami Vivekananda, Swami Brahmananda, and many others. We've read some in the introduction, we read some of their participation. As we go on, we'll find out more and more. So again, namaste and welcome to this evening's class. Before we begin, is there anything that anyone would like to discuss that is left from our previous discussions or from anything else that you'd like to talk about? All right, dear Haima, please tell us where we are in the book, and let's read on.
Okay, good evening and namaste, everybody. We are on page 101 on PDF, and you have to figure the book. The topic is Jnani and Vijnani. That's where I will be starting. It's a small topic, and I will start it. The Jnani and Vijnani. The Jnani gives up his identification with worldly things, discriminating, not this, not this. Only then can he realize Brahman. Like reaching the roof of a house by leaving the steps behind one by one. But the Vijnani, who is more intimately acquainted with Brahman, realizes something more. He realizes that the steps are made of the same materials as the roof, bricks, lime, and brick dust. That which is realized intuitively as Brahman through the eliminating process of not this, not this, is then found to have become the universe and all its living beings. The Vijnani sees that the reality which is nirguna, without attributes, is also saguna, with attributes. A man cannot live on the roof a long time. He comes down again. Those who realize Brahman in Samadhi come down also and find that it is Brahman that has become the universe and its living beings. In the musical scale, there are the notes Sa, Re, Ama, pada, and ni. But one cannot keep one's voice on ni a long time. The ego does not vanish altogether. The man coming down from samadhi perceives that it is Brahman that has become the ego, the universe, and all living beings. This is known as Vijnana. That is the end of Jnani and Vijnani topic.
And this is one of the key principles that Sri Ramakrishna taught us. If we look at Sanatana Dharma in its various forms, we see that there is this parsing apart in one way or another of Brahman as the knower of Brahman as a jnani, somehow setting that person apart. What Sri Ramakrishna says, no, you can go yet beyond that and integrate yourself and everything that you can and do know and experience as Brahman, as Saguna Brahman. And this Vivekananda, once he understood this, was overwhelmed by it. And it became, if you look at the message that he was offering in the West, it was that all is Brahman. And that the West needed to do away with its dualism and idealism and accept this idea, which, though Vivekananda rarely used the word Vijnana, it was in fact what he was talking about. So though this is a very short section, we'll see that this idea pops up again and again in Sri Ramakrishna's teachings to various people. Any comments or questions from anyone about this key principle? Okay, dear, please read on.
Next topic is path of love is easy. The path of knowledge leads to truth, as does the path that combines knowledge and love. The path of love, too, leads to this goal. The way of love is as true as the way of knowledge. All paths ultimately lead to the same truth. But as long as God keeps the feeling of ego in us, it is easier to follow the path of love. The Vijnani sees that Brahman is immovable and actionless, like Mount Sumeru. This universe consists of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. They are in Brahman, but Brahman is unattached. That is the path of love is easy topic, very small topic.
Well, but it introduces the idea that the path of love or bhakti, devotion, is an easy path. The jnani's path is not an easy path. To ascend those steps, as was talked about earlier in discussing jnana and vijnana, to ascend those steps and leave behind the world of phenomena, very difficult indeed. Particularly for householders, because it's so difficult. You have to do it mentally and still keep up your participation in the world. Well, there is not that difficulty with the path of love or bhakti. You incorporate everything that exists in the world as part of the glory and grace of the divine. And so there is no difficulty. You love it all. And so, as it said, it comes to the same goal. Any comments or questions or thoughts about any of that? All right, dear, please move on.
Next topic is very small. This is called God's supernatural powers. The Vijnani further sees that what is Brahman is the Bhagavan, the personal God. He who is beyond the three gunas is the Bhagavan, with his 6 supernatural powers. Living beings, the universe, mind, intelligence, love, renunciation, knowledge. All these are the manifestations of his power. With a laugh, if an aristocrat has neither house nor property, or if he has been forced to sell them, one doesn't call him an aristocrat anymore. All laugh. God is endowed with the 6 supernatural powers. If he were not, who would obey him? All laugh. That's the end of God's supernatural powers topic. Next week. Yes.
Would you read them again, please?
Sure.
What is he?
Yes. Yeah. God's supernatural powers. The Vijnani further sees that what is Brahman is the Bhagavan, the personal God. He who is beyond the 3 gunas is the Bhagavan with his 6 supernatural powers. Living beings, the universe, mind, intelligence, love, renunciation, knowledge. All these are the manifestations of his power.
Notice the very first of these is living beings. We are the creation and are under the power of the divine. It is the first of her or his supernatural powers. This creation of human or living beings, not just human, but all living beings. As Vivekananda said, where shall we go to find God, if not in our own hearts and in every living being? This is the utterance of a Vijnani. So this is where, the living beings are the first of the powers. It is both a comfort to us to be in that relationship, and it is a challenge because our mind, of course, wants to think of us as separate from that. Well, over time, we conquer the tendency of the mind to see itself as separate. Not that it ever sees itself as totally unified until it loses itself in Brahman entirely. But it does understand that it is the Saguna Atman. That's the truth of our being. Anything else from anyone? All right, dear, please go on.
If an aristocrat has neither house nor property, or if he has been forced to sell them, one doesn't call him an aristocrat anymore. All laugh. God is endowed with the 6 supernatural powers. If he were not, who would obey him? All laugh. Next topic, different manifestations of God's power. Just to see how picturesque this universe is, how many things there are. The sun, moon, and stars, and how many varieties of living beings. Big and small, good and bad, strong and weak. Some endowed with more power, some with less. Vidyasagar asks, has he endowed some with more power and others with less? Master, as the all-pervading spirit, he exists in all beings, even in the ant. But the manifestations of his power are different in different beings. Otherwise, how can one person put 10 to flight while another can't face even one? And why do all people respect you? Have you grown a pair of horns? Laughter.
And he's speaking to Vijayasagar, remember?
Yes.
And he's saying, why do people respect you? Have you grown a pair of horns? No, because you are endowed with some special characteristics. So read that again if you will.
Uh-huh. Vidyasagar asks, has he endured some with more power and others with less? Master, as the all-pervading spirit, he exists in all beings, even in the ant. But the manifestations of his power are different in different beings. Otherwise, how can one person put 10 to flight while another can't face even one? And why do all people respect you? Have you grown a pair of horns? Laughter. You have more compassion and learning. Therefore, people honor you and come to pay you their respects. Don't you agree with me? Vidyasagar smiled. The master continued, there's nothing in mere scholarship. The object of study is to find means of knowing God and realizing Him. A holy man had a book. When asked what it contained, he opened it and showed that on all the pages were written the words Om Rama and nothing else. What is the significance of the Gita? It's what you find by repeating the word 10 times.
Just one moment, time.
Sure.
The book was opened and on every page was written Om Rama.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is this just a mythology? Swami Prabhavananda's Sevak, his personal attendant, was a man named Swami Krishnananda. Swami Krishnananda lived with Swami Prabhavananda for many, many years and lived on a good number of years after the Swami Prabhavananda left the body. One of the things that was notable about Krishnananda is that he had always these small steamer trunks in his room. And everything that he encountered that he wished to save, he threw into that steamer trunk. When he passed away, we discovered that there were in storage 31 of these steamer trunks. They contained all kinds of treasures, particularly those associated with Swami Prabhavananda. But one of the unique things that they contained were these little reporter's notebooks. If you know, they're about 3 by 5. They're lined, and there's a coil at the top so that the pages are easy to flip over. On every one of those pages, on both sides of every page, was written just these words, Jai Sri Ramakrishna. How many times he must have written the words Jai Sri Ramakrishna in longhand on those lines. Jai Sri Ramakrishna, page after page after page after page, book after book after book after book, 31 steamer trunks. I don't remember how many of those little books we found. I was in charge of the archives at that point when we opened those trunks. And it was, everyone's eyes grew big. But it wasn't any surprise, having known Krishnananda. He didn't say much. What he said was well worth listening to. But you could tell that he had followed an instruction from Swami Prabhavananda, to repeat the words Jai Sri Ramakrishna. And one of the ways he found to repeat them was to write them in these books. So this is not just some example that the master is giving that has no analog in what we would think of as the life of another real human being. So read that again.
Sure, Brother Shankara. Master, as the all-pervading spirit, he exists in all beings, even in the ant. But the manifestations of his power are different in different beings. Otherwise, how can one person put 10 to flight while another can't face even one? And why do all people respect you? Have you grown a pair of horns? Laughter. You have more compassion in learning. Therefore, people honor you and come to pay you their respects. Don't you agree with me? Vidyasagar smiled. The master continued, there is nothing in mere scholarship. The object of study is to find means of knowing God and realizing Him. A holy man had a book. When asked what it contained, he opened it and showed that on all the pages were written the words Om Rama and nothing else. What is the significance of the Gita? It is what you find by repeating the word 10 times. It is then reversed into Tagi, which means a person who has renounced everything for God. And the lesson of the Gita is, oh man, renounce everything and seek God alone. Whether a man is a monk or a householder, he has to shake off all attachment from his mind. Chaitanya Deva set out on a pilgrimage to southern India. One day he saw a man reading the Gita. Another man seated at a distance was listening and weeping. His eyes were swimming in tears. Chaitanya Deva asked him, do you understand all this? The man said, no, revered sir, I don't understand a word of the text. Then why are you crying? Asked Chaitanya. The devotee said, I see Arjuna's chariot before me. I see Lord Krishna and Arjuna seated in front of it, talking. I see this and I weep. Why?
Right. Note who's asking the question. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the great incarnation Chaitanya, wandering as he did in Bengal and South India. And he comes across this man who, though he doesn't say that he understands a word of the text, he is visualizing the scene. He is seeing Arjuna, the chariot, the horses, and Sri Krishna, the charioteer. And so this brings tears to his eyes. This is devoutly to be wished, that we can understand the Gita, yes, but much more important, it's for us to understand the nature of the relationship of Sri Krishna and Arjuna. Because Arjuna is the every person. He represents each one of us. And so it is when Sri Krishna is giving the 700 verses of instruction to Arjuna, he is giving them to us. And this, of course, is one of the powers of the incarnation, one of their supernatural powers, the ability to deliver information to us that is transformative in our lives. Any comments or concerns or questions from anyone? All right, dear, please read on.
Why does a Vijnani keep an attitude of love toward God? The answer is that I consciousness persists. It disappears in the state of samadhi, no doubt, but it comes back. In the case of ordinary people, the I never disappears. You may cut down the ashwatha tree, but the next day sprouts shoot up. All laugh. That's the end of that small topic, which is called different manifestations of God's power. And now we move. Yes.
Notice once again, the master does not condemn the ego. He just says, it comes from we know not where. He makes the analogy to the aswata tree, which is a kind of fig tree. You cut it down right to the ground, and he says the very next day, sprouts arise around. This is the ego. And so we transform in his instruction. We don't try to be rid of the ego. We transform it from an unripe ego to a ripe ego. All right, dear, please go on.
Next topic, ego causes.
Just 1 second.
Sure.
About this ego, I'm thinking, I don't know, the discussion here, Thakur is saying, Sri Ramakrishna is saying, and I think it was relevant, but I'm just sharing my thought that the ego really is not an issue if we do our spiritual practices. And as we age, like all of us here are old enough, the ego is not much of an issue because it mellows down with the age. And with spiritual practice, it helps big time. And I mean, I have seen people, older people who may have some ego issues, or younger people. So I think the ego, which the question being asked here, that why don't we get rid of ego and all? I think for the sadhakas, that should not be a big issue. I feel that if we do our spiritual practices and if we follow our guru's advice, and with age, and I think as we go deeper into our own practices and spiritual consciousness, there is definitely a strong wisdom which comes back to us from those experiences, and it stays with us, which makes us a better person. I don't know if the ego goes or not, but that's just a thought to share.
Well, thank you very much, as always, Shailesh. Indeed, as Sri Ramakrishna points out, the ego is not an issue when it becomes ripe. It is an ego, it is an issue, as long as it remains the unripe ego, in which case it keeps insisting on its own version of reality, which of course is compounded of its samskaras and vasanas, and the effect of the gunas on that particular person at any particular time. And so if it continues to insist that its own version of reality is auspicious, correct, and then the ego is an issue at that point. And the master will make this case as he moves on in his instruction of Vijayasagar and others. So thank you, Shailesh, as always, for sharing your opinion. And of course, you're right. In the case of a mature spiritual aspirant, the ego is less of an issue.
That if is the toughest one, Brother Shankara. If we practice our regular practices, that if is the toughest one. Yes. Then if we practice, yes, ego gets lessened and lessened, and it becomes riper. We move to the ripened stage. But that if is the most toughest one for ordinary human beings like us, like many of people like me. Some people can do it, some people cannot do it. That's what. I think Swami is talking here. Ego causes our sufferings. That is the topic now. So we will see.
We'll see what the master has to say about it.
Even after the attainment of knowledge, this I consciousness comes up. Nobody knows from where. You dream of a tiger, then you awake, but your heart keeps on palpitating. All our suffering is due to this I. The cow cries, Hamba, which means I. That's why it suffers so much. It is yoked to the plow and made to work in rain and sun. Then it may be killed by the butcher. From its hide, shoes are and also drums, which are mercilessly beaten. Laughter. Still, it does not escape suffering. At last, strings are made out of its entrails for the bows used in carding cotton. Then it no longer says Hamba, Hamba, I, but Tuhu, Tuhu, Thou, Thou. Only then are its troubles o'er. O Lord, I am the servant, Thou art the master. I am the child, Thou art the mother. Once Rama asked Hanuman, how do you look on me? And Hanuman replied, O Rama, as long as I have the feeling of I see that thou art the whole and I am a part. Thou art the master, I am thy servant. But when, O Rama, I have the knowledge of truth, then I realize that thou art I and I am thou. The relationship of master and servant is the proper one. Since this I must remain, let the rascal be God's servant. That's the end of that ego causes our sufferings.
And there it is.
Yes.
Let the ego be the servant. Let the ego have this relationship of servant to the master. And then it ripens. Then it because it is slowly and slowly trained to be obedient and to not take thought for itself, but to take thought for others. Anything else from anyone? It was a beautiful, beautiful section. Okay, please go on.
Evil of I and mine is the topic now. I and mine, these constitute ignorance. My house, my wealth, my learning, my possessions. The attitude that is one to say such things comes of ignorance. On the contrary, the attitude born of knowledge is, O God, thou art the master, and all these things belong to you, belong to thee. House, family, children, attendants, friends are thine. One should constantly remember death. Nothing will survive death. We are born into this world to perform certain duties, like the people who come from the countryside to Calcutta on business. If a visitor goes to a rich man's garden, the superintendent says to him, this is our garden, this is our lake, and so forth. But if the superintendent is dismissed for some misdeed, he can't carry away even his mango wood chest. He sends it secretly by the gatekeeper. Laughter. Good laughs on two occasions. He laughs when the physician says to the patient's mother, don't be afraid, mother. I shall certainly cure your boy. God laughs, saying to himself, I am going to take his life. And this man says he will save it. The physician thinks he is the master, forgetting that God is the master. God laughs again when two brothers divide their land with a string, saying to each other, this side is mine and that side is yours. He laughs and says to himself, the whole universe belongs to me, but they say they own this portion or that portion. Can one know God through reasoning? Be his servant, surrender yourself to him, and then pray to him. To Vidyasagar with a smile, well, what is your attitude? Vidyasagar smiling, someday I shall confide it to you. All laugh. Master laughing, God cannot be realized through mere scholarly reasoning. Intoxicated with divine love, the master sang, who is there that can understand what Mother Kali is? Even the 6 darshanas are powerless to reveal her. It is she, the scriptures say, that is the inner self of the yogi, who in self discovers all his joy. She that, of her own sweet will, inhabits every living thing. The macrocosm and microcosm rest in the mother's womb. Now do you see how vast it is? In the Mooladhara, the yoga meditates on her, and in the Sahasrara, who but Shiva was beheld her as she really is. Within the lotus wilderness, she sports beside her mate, the swan. When man aspires to understand her, Ramprasad must smile. To think of knowing her, he says, is quite as laughable as to imagine one can swim across the boundless sea. But while my mind has understood, alas, my heart has not. Thou but a dwarf, it still would strive to make a captive of the moon. Continuing, the master said, did you notice? The macrocosm and microcosm rest in the mother's womb. Now do you see how vast it is? Again, the poet says, even the 6 darshanas are powerless to reveal her. She cannot be realized by means of mere scholarship. That's the end of the topic, which is evil of I and mine.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments, Brother Shankara? Any purport from you?
Well, just that we're reminded again and again
Mhm.
that it is this idea of possessions and
Yes.
holding fast to things that is the source of our troubles. When we lack attachment, when we practice detachment, when we practice spiritual disciplines that allow us to retreat within and see that all that is on the outside in the way of sense pleasures and our so-called possessions, they arise and they pass away. They're not the me, myself. The me, myself, the master has said, take this attitude of servant to master, and you will gain the knowledge that is needed. That is not intellectual knowledge, it's knowledge of the heart, of the Atman. Anything else from anyone? All right, dear, please go on.
Next topic is power of faith. One must have faith and love. Let me tell you how powerful faith is. A man was about to cross the sea from Ceylon to India. Vibhishana said to him, tie this thing in a corner of your wearing cloth and you will cross the sea safely. You will be able to walk on the water, but be sure not to examine it or you will sink. The man was walking easily on the water of the sea. Such is the strength of faith. When having gone part of the way, he thought, what is this wonderful thing Vibhishana has given me, that I can walk even on the water? He untied the knot and found only a leaf with the name of Rama written on it. Oh, just this, he thought, and instantly he sank. There is a popular saying that, that Hanuman jumped over the sea through his faith in Rama's name, but Rama himself had to build a bridge. If a man has faith in God, then he need not be afraid, though he may have committed sin, nay, the vilest sin. Then Sri Ramakrishna sang a song glorifying the power of faith. If only I can pass away repeating Durga's name, how canst thou then, O blessed one, withhold from me deliverance, wretched though I may be? The master continued, faith and devotion. One realizes God easily through devotion. He is grasped through ecstasy of love. With these words, the master sang again. How are you trying, O my mind, to know the nature of God? You are groping like a madman locked in a dark room. He is grasped through ecstatic love. How can you fathom him without it? Only through affirmation, never negation, can you know him. Neither through Veda, nor through Tantra, nor the 6 darshanas. It is in love's elixir only that he delights, O mind. He dwells in the body's inmost depths, in everlasting joy. And for that love, the mighty yogis practice yoga from age to age. When love awakens, the Lord, like a magnet, draws to him the soul. He it is, says Ram Prasad, that I approach his mother. But must I give away the secret here in the marketplace? From the hints I've given, O mind, guess what that being is? While singing, the master went into samadhi. He was seated on the bench, facing west, the palms of his hands joined together, his body erect and motionless. Everyone watched him expectantly. Vidyasagar too was speechless and could not take his eyes from the master. And that's the end of this topic called Power of Faith.
Well, I don't think anything needs to be added to that.
That's true. And next topic is Brahman and Shakti are identical.
Now, everyone listen up here, because once again, this is one of the key principles of the Master's advent, of his coming among us, is to dispel this notion that there is any difference between the absolute and the relative, the motionless and that which is moving. Absolutely a critical point here. Okay, dear?
Mhm. Brahman and Shakti are identical. After a time, Sri Ramakrishna showed signs of regaining the normal state. He drew a deep breath and said with a smile, means of realizing God are ecstasy of love and devotion. That is, one must love God. He who is Brahman is addressed as the mother. He it is, says Ram Prasad, that I approach his mother. But must I give away the secret here in the marketplace? From the hints I have given, O mind, guess what that being is? Ram Prasad asks the mind only to guess the nature of God. He wishes it to understand that what is called Brahman in the Vedas is addressed by him as the mother. He who is attributeless also has attributes. He who is Brahman is also Shakti. When thought of is inactive, and when thought of as the creator, preserver, and destroyer, he is called the primordial energy Kali.
Okay, please read that again. I was coughing.
When thought of he who is Brahman is also Shakti. When thought of as inactive, he is called Brahman. And when thought of as the creator, preserver, and destroyer, he is called the primordial energy, Kali. Brahman and Shakti are identical, like fire and its power to burn. When we talk of fire, we automatically mean also its power to burn. Again, the fire's power to burn implies the fire itself. If you accept one, you must accept the other. Brahman alone is addressed as the mother. This is because a mother is an object of great love. One is able to realize God just through love. Ecstasy of feeling, devotion, love, and faith, these are the means. Listen to a song. As is a man's meditation, so is his feeling of love. As is a man's feeling of love, so is his gain. And faith is the root of all. If in the nectar lake of Mother Kali's feet, my mind remains immersed, of little use or worship, oblations, or sacrifice. That's the end. End of the topic, Brother Shankara. Any comment?
Notice how often the master keeps repeating to Vidyasagar, the way to understand and to have a relationship with God is through love, not through scholarship, not through intellectual exercise, not through attempting to dispel the ego through spiritual practice, though that is an auspicious thing to do. It is impelled and powered by your desire to be in a loving relationship with God. So notice how again and again the Master says, it is love, which is dependent on faith. We practice this love before it is fully realized by us, because we have faith in the experiences of others, of the great teachers and their disciples that have been recorded over the centuries, the thousands of years. So, over and over again, he says, it is through love that you will find it. Now, he's speaking to Vidyasagar, no doubt, and bending Vidyasagar's adamancy about the power of his scholarship and philanthropy, bending that slowly to where the reflection of Vidyasagar's true self is reflected back on his awareness. And we'll see as Vidyasagar, as this goes on, what happens to Vidyasagar. Anything else from anyone? All right, dear.
I just have a comment, Brother Shankara. Without the faith and the devotion, Swami is right that it's useless of worship, oblations, and sacrifices. They have no use. That's what he said in the last line, which is very, very true. Very true.
It isn't that those things are inherently useless.
Yes.
But they become useless after we have the realization of God through love and faith.
Yes. Okay. Next topic is growth of divine love, lessens worldly duties. What is needed is absorption in God, loving Him intensely. The nectar lake is the lake of immortality. In a man sinking in, it does not die, but becomes immortal. Some people believe that by thinking of God too much, the mind becomes deranged. But that's not true. God is the lake of nectar, the ocean of immortality. He is called the immortal in the Vedas. Sinking in it, one does not die, but verily transcends death. Of little use are worship, oblations, or sacrifice. If a man comes to love God, he need not trouble himself much about these activities. One needs a fan only as long as there is no breeze. The fan may be laid aside if the southern breeze blows. Then what need is there of a fan? To Vidyasagar, the activities that you are engaged in are good. It is very good if you can perform them in a selfless spirit, renouncing egotism, giving up the idea that you are the doer. Through such action, one develops love and devotion to God and ultimately realizes Him. The more you come to love God, the less you will be inclined to perform action. When the daughter-in-law is with child, her mother-in-law gives her less work to do. As time goes by, she's given less and less work. When the time of delivery nears, she's not allowed to do any work at all, lest it should hurt the child or cause difficulty at the time of birth. By these philanthropic activities, you're really doing good to yourself. If you can do them disinterestedly, your mind will become pure and you will develop love of God. As soon as you have that love, you will realize Him. Man really cannot help the world. God alone does that. He who has created the sun and the moon, who has put love for their children in parents' hearts, endowed noble souls with compassion, and holy men and devotees with divine love. The man who works for others without any selfish motive really does good to himself. There is gold buried in your heart, but you are not yet aware of it. It is covered with a thin layer of clay. Once you are aware of it, all these activities of yours will lessen. After the birth of her child, the daughter-in-law in the family busies herself with it alone. Everything she does is only for the child. Her mother-in-law doesn't let her do any household duties. That's the end of the topic.
Notice what was meant by the master slowly and slowly bending Vidyasagar's attention on himself and the manner in which he has been doing the work that he's been doing, and saying, there's gold in your heart, but you have not yet discovered it because it's covered with the thin clay of this egoistic idea of how you are doing your work. So that clay will be dissolved by the water, by the tears of desire that Vidyasagar will ultimately cry. Whether he cries them openly or only in his heart, the effect will be the same. That layer of clay will be washed away. That thin layer of clay, the Master says. Anything else from anyone about any of this? All right, dear, please go on.
Next topic is parable of the woodcutter. Go forward. A woodcutter once entered a forest to gather wood. A brahmachari said to him, go forward. He obeyed the injunction and discovered some sandalwood trees. After a few days, he reflected, the holy man asked me to go forward. He didn't tell me to stop here. So he went forward and found a silver mine. After a few days, he went still farther and discovered a gold mine. And next, mines of diamonds and precious stones. With these, he became immensely rich. Through selfless work, love of God grows in the heart. Then through his grace, one realizes him in course of time. God can be seen. One can talk to him as I'm talking to you. In silent wonder, they all sat listening to the master's words. It seemed to them that the goddess of wisdom herself, seated on Sri Ramakrishna's tongue, was asking these words not merely to Vidyasagar, but to all humanity for its good. It was nearly 9 o'clock in the evening. The master was about to leave. Master, to Vidyasagar with a smile, the words I have spoken are really superfluous. You know all this. You simply aren't conscious of it. There are countless gems in the coffers of Varuna, but he himself isn't aware of them. Vidyasagar with a smile. You may say as you like. Master smiling. Oh yes, there are many wealthy people who don't know the names of all their servants and are even unaware of many of the precious things in their houses. All laugh. Everybody was delighted with the master's conversation. Again, addressing Vidyasagar, he said with a smile, please visit the temple garden sometime. I mean the garden of Rashmani. It's a charming place. Vidyasagar, of course I shall go. You have so kindly come here to see me, and shall I not return your visit? Master, visit me. Oh, never think of such a thing. Vidyasagar, why, sir? Why do you say that? May I ask you to explain? Master smiling, you see, we're like small fishing boats. All smile. We can play in small canals and shallow waters, and also in big rivers. But you are a ship. You may run aground on the way. I'll laugh. Vidyasagar remained silent. Sri Ramakrishna said with a laugh, but even a ship can go there at this season. Vidyasagar smiling, yes, this is the monsoon season. All laugh. M said to himself, this is indeed the monsoon season of newly awakened love. At such times, one doesn't care for prestige or formalities. Sri Ramakrishna then took leave of Vidyasagar, who with his friends escorted the master to the main gate, leading the way with a lighted candle in his hand. Before leaving the room, the master prayed for the family's welfare, going into an ecstatic mood as he did so. As soon as the master and the devotees reached the gate, they saw an unexpected sight and stood still. In front of them was a bearded gentleman of fair complexion, aged about 36. He wore his clothes like a Bengali, but not on his head was a white turban tied after the fashion of the Sikhs. No sooner did he see the master than he fell prostrate before him, turban and all. When he stood up, the master said, who is this, Balaram? Why so late in the evening? Balaram, I have been waiting here a long time, sir. Master, why didn't you come in? Balaram, all were listening to you. I didn't like to disturb you. The master got into the carriage with his companions. Vidyasagar to M softly, shall I pay the carriage hire? M, oh, don't bother, please, it is taken care of. Vidyasagar and his friends bowed to Sri Ramakrishna, and the carriage started for Dakshineshwar. But the little group, with the Venerable Vidyasagar at their head holding the lighted candle, stood at the gate and gazed after the master until he was out of sight. That's the end of the topic, and we only have 1 minute. Anything you want to give your wisdom, Brother?
I just want to note that it was very unusual for someone of Vidyasagar's status. He was a wealthy, aristocratic gentleman. For him to hold the candle himself and accompany the master out to the carriage and then stand there and gaze after him until the master was out of sight. All this lets you know how deep an impression Sri Ramakrishna had made on Vidyasagar. And of course, it would have made a deep impression on Vidyasagar that Balaram was outside waiting, but would not come in for fear of disturbing the conversation. So he would just wait outside there. Again, love and devotion. So any final comment or thought from anyone else?
It seems, the thing is, Vidyasagar never met, Sri Ramakrishna after this meeting.
No.
That was the, so that shows that God has his will, and that, he does things according to the, his grace.
Yes.
The thing that really interests me, he says, is all affirmation and not negation. Shankaracharya keeps saying, this is not, this is not, this is not. So, it is amazing how Sri Ramakrishna taught about all this bhakti, sevak ego and all those things. At the same time, he taught all the jnanam to Vivekananda.
Yes. Indeed. Anything else? Thank you, Paula. Anything else from anyone? All right. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward, knowing that the mother and father who were part of the introduction prayer to these sessions, that mother and father is holding us secure in their loving and protective embrace. So Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. And may you all be well and in bright spirits. Of course, we'll have a class tomorrow night on the book Realizing God, and on Saturday, Divine Grace. And then on Sunday, the talk will be the third of these three talks. The first, purification, the second, revelation, and the third, this coming Sunday, on salvation, which we heard a lot about tonight. And you'll hear echoes of it on Sunday. All right, dears.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Until next time.